Good morning once again. Excellencies, eminence and religious leaders, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to warmly welcome you to the intercultural and interreligious dialogue that we'll be sharing today. It is a pleasure to be here. It's an honor and a privilege to be spending time with you today. And we certainly have a great and distinguished group of individuals who will be speaking throughout the remainder of the morning. And I'd like to welcome you to this conversation. Today we've come together in recognition of the vital role that dialogue plays in improving awareness and understanding of the common values shared by all of mankind. In support of the dialogue among civilizations, in November of 2022, the Muslim World League, under the leadership of His Excellency Mohammed Al-Issa, Secretary General, launched the Forum for Building Bridges between East and West. The aim of this initiative is to foster mutual understanding and peaceful coexistence among the world's diverse cultures and nations. And it seeks to contribute to this goal by mobilizing religious, social, economic, and political leaders throughout the world with the main purpose to strengthen public dialogue and call for bridging cultural and religious gaps in societies. So today we commend His Excellency Mohammed Al-Issa for his vision and his initiatives on these very fronts. We also wish to recognize the cooperation of the United Nations Multicultural Study of Faiths, of the UN Staff Recreation Council, together in this vision with the support of the United Nations Alliance of Civilization. I would now like to give the floor to His Excellency Mohammed Al-Issa, Secretary General of the Muslim World League. Excellency, you have the floor.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. معالي رئيس الجمعية العمومية بالأمم المتحدة السيد csaba كőrösi، سعادة نائبة الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة السيدة أمينة محمد، معالي المبعوث السامي لتحالف الحضارات السيد ميغيل مراتب، سعادة المستشار الخاص لتعدد الثقافات والأديان بالأمم المتحدة السيد آرثر ويلسون، أصحاب السماحة والفضيلة والنيابة والغبطة، أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، أعضاء السلك الدبلوماسي بالأمم المتحدة، السيدات والسادة، الحضور الكريم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يسعدني أن ألتقي في هذا اليوم مع نخبة متميزة من المهتمين بتعزيز سلام عالمنا ووئام مجتمعاته الوطنية، ولا سيما المجتمعات الأكثر تنوعا في هوياتها الدينية والثقافية والإثنية. وعندما نتحدث عن هذا الموضوع نتحدث عن أهمية تعزيز تحالفنا الحضاري، وإذا تحدثنا عن ذلك تبرز حضارتا الشرق والغرب. لا شك أن أكثر الحضارات التي لا تزال محل نقاش ومحل جدل الفلاسفة والمفكرين والمصلحين وعلماء الاجتماع ورواد السياسة والإعلام هي الحضارة الإسلامية والحضارة الغربية. كما ندرك أن لكل حضارة هويتها الخاصة بها والتي لا بد من تفهم حقها في الوجود مهما كان الاختلاف معه. ونقصد بالحضارة مجموعة الاعتقادات والأفكار والسلوك التي تشكل قناعة وتصرف العموم، وليس قناعة الأفراد أو قناعة المجموعات الخاصة. ومن ذلك المستجدات الفكرية والسلوكية التي يحدث نعم يحصل النزاع حولها حتى في الحضارة الواحدة نفسها. وما لم يكن ذلك تفهم فإننا سندعو الجميع إلى الأخذ بنظرية حتمية الصدام والصراع الحضاري، ومن ثم سيكون التعايش بين تنوعنا الإنساني سيكون مطلبا مستحيلا، بل سندعو إلى استدعاء حلقات مظلمة ومؤلمة من تاريخنا البشري. وهنا أؤكد على أمر: أولا، التواصل للتعارف والتعاون بين الأمم والشعوب هو نداء إلهي في كل الشرائع، وفي الإسلام تحديدا يقول الله جل وعلا: وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا. ثانيا، لكل حضارة خصوصيتها وحقها في الوجود، ولا يمكن الدعوة بانصهار الحضارات في حضارة واحدة، كما لا يمكن أن تتفوق حضارة على أخرى إلا بالحقيقة التي تمتلكها وليس بحماجية القوة. وإذا كان الأمر كذلك فليس أمامنا إلا احترام القدر الإلهي بالتنوع والاختلاف الحتمي في هذه الحياة بين البشر. ثالثا، لا يزال التاريخ الإنساني من حين لآخر يزودنا بصور مؤلمة لنتائج صدام حضاري بين الشرق والغرب نشأ في بدايته عن تبادل النظرات والعبارات الحادة بالرغم من القرب الشكلي من بعض، إضافة إلى استدعاء أحداث تاريخية سياسية ومادية لا تمثل حقيقة الوعي الديني ولا تمثل نقاء الأمم والشعوب، وإنما يتحملها أصحابها سواء صدر عن بعض المحسوبين عن الشرق أو الغرب، إضافة إلى عدم استيعاب حكمة الخالق بالاختلاف والتنوع بين البشر. ولدينا نصوص دينية، وتحديدا لدينا نحن المسلمين نصوص دينية صريحة تدعو لاحترام كرامة الآخرين والتأكيد على أنه لا إكراه بالدين، مع الدعوة بالإحسان للمسالمين أيا كانت هويتهم. ونحن من هذا المنبر الأممي وبحضور نخب دينية وفكرية وسياسية وإعلامية ومجتمع مدني نخاطب عقلاء عالميين، نخاطبهم بأن يدركوا بحكمتهم أهمية تعزيز التفاهم والتعاون والسلام بين الأمم والشعوب، واستفهام مواعظ التاريخ التي تؤكد لنا خطورة السلام الحضاري وخطورة فرض الثقافة على الأخرى بهمجية القوة. كما ندعو الجميع إلى تمحيص التاريخ الإنساني وقراءته قراءة صحيحة، والتنبه إلى ما في بعض هذا التاريخ من تزويد أو تبالغ أو تحليل خاطئ أو متطرف. وفي جميع الأحوال فإن سبيل العقلاء هو كلمة الحوار الفاعل والمثمر. نعم، الحوار الفاعل والمثمر، واستيعاب طبيعة هذه الحياة التي نتشارك العيش فيها كما نتشارك متاعبها. وأقرب مثال لذلك جائحة كورونا التي ضربت الجميع دون استثناء، وقد حرصت رابطة العالم الإسلامي من خلال وثيقة مكة المكرمة التي أمضاها أكثر من 1200 مفتي وعالم من جميع المذاهب والطوائف الإسلامية، حرصت على إبراز حقيقة الإسلام تجاه أتباع الأديان والحضارات وعدد من القضايا المهمة في عالمنا. وختاما أشير إلى أن التحالف الحضاري بين الأمم والشعوب مع تفهم خصوصية كل حضارة وعدم التدخل في شؤونها أو الإساءة لأتباعها يعتبر ضرورة ملحة لسلام عالمنا ووئام مجتمعاتنا الوطنية، وهذا ليس خيارا نقبله أو لا نقبله، بل هو تأثير مسار وكتابة مصير. لذا من المهم أن ندعو الدول الأعضاء في الجمعية العامة للأمم المتحدة لتخصيص يوم عالمي للتحالف الحضاري بين الشرق والغرب، وذلك لتحديث وشعوب الشرق والغرب نحو المزيد من الثقة المتبادلة والتفاهم الأخوي والتعاون الفاعل في مواجهة المحققين والمستفيدين من تصحيح الأفكار المتشائمة بنظرية الصدام الحضاري، وكذلك في مواجهة تعميم الأحكام وتعميم الانطباعات على الجميع بناء على خطأ فردي أو خطأ مجموعات متفرقة. وكذلك ندعو الدول الأعضاء لتعزيز قيم السلام والوئام بين الأمم والشعوب في مناهج التعليم، وهذا أمر مهم. لا أحب أن أطيل على الحضور الكريم، أشكر للجميع هذا الحضور وإتاحة الفرصة، وشكرا لكم.
Your Excellency, thank you. I'd like to thank the Secretary General of the Muslim World League, His Excellency Mohammed Al-Issa, for your statement. Thank you very much. I now give the floor to the President of the United Nations General Assembly, His Excellency Mr. Kőrösi.
Thank you very much. Mr. Secretary General, Madam Deputy Secretary General, Mr. High Representative, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, أود أن أتقدم بخالص الشكر والتقدير لرابطة العالم الإسلامي وتحالف الأمم المتحدة للحضارات على جمعنا هنا اليوم. واسمحوا لي أن أستحي حديثي بالثناء على رابطة العالم الإسلامي لعملهم القيم والمشهور في المجال الإنساني نحو تقديم المساعدة والعون للأشخاص المتضررين من الكوارث الطبيعية. Let me also note its launch of the Faith of Our Planet coalition, uniting grassroots religious communities to fight climate change. In the time of protracted conflicts and interlocking crises, faith-based organizations play a critical role in shepherding their followers. They have an enormous potential and equally huge responsibilities. Faith brings us together within our own communities and across them. However, teachings merged with impatience and inclusivity can also lead many people astray, turning them to intolerance and extremism. At any rate, religious organizations have a major capacity to affect human behavior. At a time when the patterns of our social interaction, consumption and pollution need to fundamentally change, Over 2 billion people live in conflict zones, 1/4 of humanity. With lives disrupted, jobs unavailable, and schools not functioning, anger is boiling up. Anger which can easily be turned against people who are not and should not be the enemy. On the other hand, we witness increasing tendencies across the world to move hateful discussions online. This is particularly prevalent on social media platforms, and this extremism can lead to deadly real-life consequences. Unfortunately, women and girls are often especially targeted in the online space. So what can we as international community do to address the root causes of intolerance? What can we do to prevent actions that dehumanize the other, somebody who follows a different faith or no faith? How can we better empower young people to speak up and stand firm against hatred and bigotry? Let me share with you some of the related actions taken by the General Assembly. The Member States are currently discussing the establishment of a global digital compact, which will offer an opportunity to curb online hate. In recent months, the Assembly has come together on numerous occasions to reaffirm its commitment to tolerance. Member States debated how to eliminate racial discrimination and Islamophobia. We commemorated the 30th anniversary of the Declaration of the Rights of Minorities to encourage governments to better protect these communities. And the General Assembly discussed the linkages between hate speech and genocide. There's a clear convergence among Member States that intolerance can lead to violence and extremism, and that we need to do more to promote intercultural and interreligious dialogue. Let's be bold and ambitious in our visions of a more peaceful future to share. Let's hope that pursuing interests will increasingly involve adherence to moral norm as well, something that not always accompanies diplomatic actions. And let's never forget the words of the American theologian Rav Sotman. The best and the test of courage comes when we are in minority. The test of tolerance comes when we are in majority. Thank you.
Thanks to the President of the United Nations General Assembly, His Excellency Mr. Csaba Kőrösi, for his statement. I now give the floor to the United Nations Deputy Secretary General, Her Excellency, Ms. Amina J. Mohammed.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Your Excellency, Sheikh Dr. Mohammed Al-Issa, Secretary General of the Muslim World League, Your Excellency Mr. Csaba Kőrösi, the President of our General Assembly, and Your Excellency, my friend and my colleague, the Under-Secretary General Miguel Moratinos, our High Representative for the UN Alliance of Civilizations, Excellencies, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On behalf of the Secretary General, let me start by thanking the Secretary General of the Muslim World League, His Excellency Sheikh Al-Issa, for organizing this meeting, but also for your leadership and the work that you do for humanity. Intercultural and interreligious dialogue can play a key role in building bridges between East and West, as we have heard from the two first speakers. In my view, intercultural and interreligious dialogue forms the very foundation of such bridges. When dialogue is conducted in a genuine, open-hearted manner, grounded in mutual respect, we build strong foundations, the type of foundations that can withstand the storms of our time. When we do not have such dialogue, our bridges are weak, if they are there at all. I'm therefore pleased that the Under-Secretary General, Miguel Moratinos, will be addressing this forum on this topic as well. Excellencies, brothers and sisters, as we meet today for this important discussion, our world is facing a number of complex and interlocking crises. From conflicts to climate chaos, to crises in food, energy and finance, to a rising tide of inequalities in finance, trade and technology that threaten to shred the social contract. From underwhelming progress on the SDGs to rising mistrust and intolerance. These crises are providing fertile ground for an alarming rise in hate speech and xenophobia, in discrimination against individuals and communities based on their religion, their beliefs, race, ethnicity, language or gender, and in concomitant acts of violence, intimidation and coercion. These heinous acts gained speed during the pandemic, fueled by grievance, by fear, by frustration and mistrust. Prolific digital platforms amplified voices and extended the global reach of hate mongers and their toxic ideologies. These vile acts are violations of human rights and affront to the values we hold dear at the United Nations. If not adequately addressed, they can lead to social fragmentation, violence and perhaps even conflict. Ladies and gentlemen, amid this gloomy picture of the world, it is dialogue that stands out as a beacon of hope. It is dialogue that offers a way forward. Dialogue based on diversity, inclusivity, listening to others and respecting our differences. A dialogue where everyone is welcome and empowered to contribute, including women and girls. Such dialogue that requires a transformed approach to education, one that nurtures a culture of peace and empowers students to thrive in our modern and demanding world. A dialogue that is grounded in the universal values of empathy, compassion, and humanity. A dialogue, a way of life, that is not threatened by diversity, but embraces it. Excellencies, this transformative dialogue that is so desperately needed is not possible without you. It requires a whole-of-society approach that brings everyone to the table in a welcomed and a safe manner. It requires, in other words, what we see here today in this room. Today I see a room that is filled with religious leaders and faith actors, all dedicated to dialogue and building tolerance and understanding among the peoples of the world. Our major religions espouse tolerance and peaceful coexistence in the spirit of a shared humanity. And so, it is our shared responsibility to resist and to reject those who falsely and maliciously invoke religion to build misconceptions, fuel division, and spread fear and hatred. Your moral voices are needed to mobilize your communities and steer them towards mutual respect and compassion. I, as a proud Muslim woman, know that the Almighty is the judge and not us mere mortals. This agenda, this work, this ethos has never been more important. And your example of inclusive, intercultural and interreligious dialogue that leaves no one behind has never been more vital to our shared future. The United Nations is proud to walk this path of tolerance and respect with you, and we look forward to building on our important work together. I wish you all the very best for a highly successful forum today. Thank you.
Again, our thanks to the United Nations Deputy Secretary General, Your Excellency Ms. Amina, Sheikh, Mohammed. I now give the floor to the High Representative for the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, His Excellency Mr. Miguel, Ángel, Moratinos.
Your Excellency, Mr. Csaba, President of the General Assembly, Your Excellency Ms. Amina, Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General, Your Excellency Sheikh Dr. Mohammad Al-Issa, Secretary General of the Muslim World League, eminent religious leaders, eminent personalities, excellencies, my dear friend. I wish to start by welcoming my dear friend, Dr. Al-Issa, to the UN headquarters in New York. I'm extremely pleased that we are supporting this event dedicated to interreligious and intercultural dialogue as a tool to build bridges between East and West. building bridges of understanding between diverse cultures, religions, and civilization. Is the raison d'etre of the United Nations Alliance of Civilization. It is truly heartwarming to see that after 18 years of the birth of the United Nations Alliance of Civilization, state and not state actors are increasingly recognizing the power of interreligion and intercultural dialogue as a viable tool for creating a cohesive, homogeneous, peaceful, and inclusive society. Yes, a society that is rich in diversity, a society that is strong in its inclusivity and respect for each and every individual regardless of their religion, faith, color, ethnicity, or gender. A society that is just in protection of all its citizens, right equally and without discrimination. These are the bases of building peaceful society. This society will rightly be characterized as ideal societies. Sadly, my dear friend, this is not the real world. Around the world, the surge of hate speech, as you have mentioned, all of you, xenophobia and religious intolerance have created mistrust between people and alienated entire communities. Bigotry, racism, stigmatization based on religion, belief, ethnicity, race, or gender thrive in chaotic societies, where toxic hate tribes, radical groups, and terrorists find a fertile ground to divide people and recruit the vulnerable and marginalized. During the pandemic and today, there has been an unprecedented increase in online activity and proliferation of digital platforms, which was a multiplier factor, enabling hate mongers and broadening their outreach and their influence across the digital platform. Neo-Nazi and white supremacist movements are gaining both strength and traction. They have become the fastest growing security threat in many countries. We have seen how these far-right groups have evolved and morphed since Christchurch, New Zealand in 2019. The perpetrators of harboring extremist ideologies were exalted for their killing on digital platforms. This dramatic event in Christchurch convinced Secretary General to launch the UN Global Plan to safeguard religious sites that my entity was tasked to draft. This plan contemplates the proposal to call for an international conference to protect religious places. And my dear friend, I'm pleased to announce today that we are going to organize this conference in February 2024 with the support of the sponsor countries Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Morocco, and with the assistance of the Freedom of Conscience Foundation. I take this opportunity to salute my dear friend Rabbi Arthur Snyder, who is with us today in this meeting. Excellencies, distinguished guests, as Deputy Secretary General rightly mentioned in her remark, the dialogue we need now is for need all around the world. The current geopolitical set makes this dialogue imperative. There is a great deal of mistrust and fear among people and between nations. This is where dialogue builds trust. That's why the United Nations General Assembly in several resolutions have recognized intercultural and interreligious dialogue as an important tool for promoting mutual respect, understanding, and compassion. Distinguished guests, 30 years ago, in 1992, Samuel Huntington issued his theory of the class of civilization. The American scientists prophesied that the great divide between humanity and the predominant source of conflict would be culture or religion. He wrongly identified Islamic civilization as the main political and cultural adversary of the West. 9 years later, his thesis formed resonance after 9/11 terrorist attack. The scene of the total collapse of the Twin Towers here in New York changed the perception of the Huntingtonian prophecy, which was reevaluated by the West, believing that they had found the new enemy, Islam. The Alliance of Civilization was created in a way to refute this theory, because we are convinced that religion, culture, and civilization are not the only root causes of conflict. It must be stated bluntly. There is no class of civilization. There is a class of ignorance. There is a class of interest, but there is no class of civilization. Quite often, identities were abused and misused. Identity, in fact, could be forces for public good. Violent extremism and terrorism should not be associated with any religious faith. Religion is, was, and continues to be a moral positive force in our life. Religious leaders have an important role to play in changing the religious discourse, in mobilizing the community towards mutual respect and compassion. To defeat the class of ignorance, we need to invest more in dialogue, to listen to each other, including those who differ with us. Distinguished guests, let's continue to provide a safe space for a meaningful dialogue and to build bridges of understanding instead of war of division. One of the most important Italian writers, Ángel, in one of his latest books dedicated to youth, said, and I quote, "There are two possibilities for the future generation. Either to be the generation of bridge, that means to build, to unite, to put together society, or the generation of dam, where we isolate ourselves, or we protect, but then the forces of evil inundate everything when they are breaking." Here today we call for society for bridges, to create spaces for respect and fraternity. Let us work together to make the voice of reason louder. Let us make a lunch of peace, not any kind of sound of guns. Let them work together. Let them respect each other. Thank you very much.
Our thanks to the High Representative for the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, His Excellency Mr. Miguel Moratinos, for his statement and support in this initiative. I now would like to give the floor to the Special Advisor of the United Nations Multicultural Study of Faiths of the UN Staff Recreation Council, His Excellency Mr. Arthur C. Wilson.
His Excellency, the President of the United Nations General Assembly, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, High Representative for the United Nations Alliance and Civilizations, Excellencies, delegates, and religious leaders. I greet you in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. And my friend, His Excellency, Dr. Mohammed, Al-Issa, the Secretary General of the Muslim World Group. I want to thank you, sir, for your vision and passion to lead in such an important high-level event. Discussing intercultural and interreligious dialogue with a focus on building bridges between the East and the West. My prayers are with you. Let's move forward. Ladies and gentlemen, this event is an opportunity. We can further the efforts of peace together. Right here within the walls of the United Nations is a famous mural commonly known as Rockwell's The Golden Rule. It simply says, "Do unto others as you would have them to do unto you." Rockwell's theory was that all major religions have aspects of the Golden Rule within them. For example, the sayings of Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, says, "Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself." And also, "Blessed be the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." The Quran calls itself the way, the ways of peace. In the sayings of Buddha, it's recorded, "Hurt not others with what pains yourself." In Judaism, it is a custom to greet someone with the word shalom, which means peace be unto you. The Talmud explains the entire Torah is for the sake of the ways of shalom, peace. It appears that as religious leaders, we are all called in our core values to strive for the cause of peace. History has proven that the efforts of peace can be dysfunctional when used with evil intentions to manipulate and to dictate. Historically, atrocities have been committed in the name of peace, but the golden rule goes deeper than words. It challenges us to action. The golden rule asks us to treat our fellow man like we would like to be treated. This added principle assures that the motive of peace is noble. Religious leaders, we are aware that we have differences in this room and assembly. But we must confess that even within our own religious affiliations, there are differences. This event has given us an opportunity to lay aside our differences and to focus on the critical issues that we all must agree we have in common. Discrimination, intolerance, and violence. These are critical issues that we all agree must change. As the United Nations Multicultural Study of Faiths and Special Advisor, also known, I'm going to say from now on, UNICEF, my career has been dedicated to study, education, and the understanding of the many challenges and possibilities of all faiths. In my early years working as a youth specialist in the criminal justice field, we discovered our rehabilitation efforts consistently resulted in a very low success rate. However, my theory was that the values required to successfully transfer and transform one's dysfunction required components of faith. So I created an international entity that incorporated faith in its structure. And by simply adding the values of faith, it resulted in a major increase in the program's success. You see, faith does not just reach the mind. Faith also reaches the heart. Faith leaders, religious leaders, we can help increase positive change in this world. Your Excellency, my challenge to this great body is to call upon the member states of the United Nations to promote the values of peace between the East and the West. I move that we add 3 efforts to our agenda. Number 1, to internationally incorporate various educational and training formats. We must go from talking to action. Number 2, to create a dialogue between the nations and peoples of the East and the West to build community through designated joint events and initiatives aimed at combating discrimination, peer pressure, and violence. And 3, to design curriculum that can be available in the educational systems and even in the home that can be imparted to the next generation because they are the leaders of tomorrow. The goal of UNICEF is to lead in this critical hour. Peace must have action. Peace must be intentional. And peace must be fostered by noble motives. What a great opportunity for religious leaders to join in this effort. Your Excellency, Dr. Mohammad Al-Issa, thank you, sir. This initiative is a great opportunity to truly build bridges between the East and the West. I believe this is possible, and I am looking forward to serving our generation. Thank you.
And our thanks again to the Special Advisor of the United Nations Multicultural Study of Faiths and UN Staff Recreation Council, His Excellency Mr. Arthur C. Wilson, for his statement and cooperation to this initiative. I'd like to thank the President of the United Nations General Assembly and the United Nations Deputy Secretary General for their participation, and also acknowledge that they will be departing the event to allow for their departure, and then continue on with a question and answer session among our distinguished guests. Thank you. Our thanks to all once again. We would now like to introduce the high-level dialogue segment with religious leaders, experts, and members of academia. As part of this dialogue, we'll hear the contributions of each representative to the following guiding questions. And I will call upon each of you on this august panel to offer your thoughts on these two questions as broad guidelines for your response. Against the backdrop of current crises and tensions around the globe, where religious, cultural, ethnic differences are all misused or serve to justify violence, how can religious leaders counter those attempts and promote mutual understanding, respect of religious and cultural diversity, global unity, and peaceful coexistence? What are the most prominent examples that are worth highlighting? Further, how can policymakers, religious and civil society leaders counter hate speech, which was mentioned on numerous occasions so far this morning, and more actively promote peace? What are the examples of strategies, programs, and initiatives that demonstrate the use of intercultural and interreligious dialogue to bridge the intercommunal gaps and promote peace in various parts of the world? Those are two very broad questions. We would love your input with, as we said, specific examples. I will start with His Eminence Chouaki Alam, the Grand Mufti of Egypt. Sir.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أحب في بداية هذه الكلمة أن أتوجه بخالص الشكر والتقدير لرابطة العالم الإسلامي ولمعالي الأمين العام الأستاذ الدكتور محمد عبد الكريم العيسى على جهوده المباركة في نشر الصورة الصحيحة لديننا الحنيف، وكذلك للعمل الدؤوب على إبراز وتدعيم القيم المشتركة بين الأمم والشعوب وتفعيل القيم الإسلامية الحضارية التي تشتد الحاجة إلى إبرازها وتفعيلها، خاصة في هذه الظروف العالمية. بالنسبة لهذا السؤال الذي طرحه أو الذي طرح في هذا النقاش، أحب أن أقول إن العمل المؤسسي الجاد يتطلب منا جميعا أن ندرك أن كل منا على ثغر في مواجهة خطاب الكراهية، وعلينا جميعا أن نتكاتف وأن ننظم صفوفنا في مواجهة هذا الخطر، فإن القادة السياسيين بلا شك عليهم علم كبير جدا في وضع السياسات العامة لمواجهة الخطر الإرهابي، والقادة الدينيين أيضا مهمتهم صعبة، وهي تتمثل في بناء الوعي وتصحيح المفاهيم وعقد الفعاليات المستمرة ودورات التدريب العلماء والباحثين من أجل تدريبهم على مواجهة شبهات الإرهابيين. ومن ثم فإننا بحاجة لاعتماد استراتيجية واضحة في هذا الشأن، ولعلنا نحن في دار الإفتاء المصرية نستطيع أن نقول إننا كنا في مقدمة المؤسسات التي اتخذت موقفا واضحا في مواجهة الإرهاب ووضع استراتيجية واضحة لمجابهة الأفكار المتطرفة، وعقدنا العديد من المؤتمرات عن طريق مؤسساتنا أو مؤسستنا العالمية، وهي الأمانة العامة لدور هيئات الإفتاء في العالم، والتي هي في القاهرة، مقرها القاهرة. وأنشأنا بناء على تطورات عديدة أنشأنا مركز سلام لمجابهة الأفكار المتطرفة، وأنشأنا أيضا مرصدا لمتابعة كل ما يخص قضايا الإرهاب في العالم. هذه التجربة الفريدة كانت بلا شك مع بالتنسيق مع القادة السياسيين، إيمانا منا نحن بأهمية العمل المؤسسي المتكامل.
Nuncio. Thank you, Your Eminence. I would now like to turn to His Excellency Archbishop Gabriel Cauchia, the Apostolic Nuncio, Permanent Observer of the Holy See Mission to the United States. to the United Nations, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, esteemed religious leaders, dear friends, the Holy See recognizes that interreligious and intercultural dialogue cannot be reduced to an optional extra. It is in fact a vital necessity on which, in large measure, our future depends. In today's fragmented world, building bridges has become a compelling responsibility in order to foster peace and unity, so that everyone can see in the other not an enemy, but a brother or sisters to be welcomed. This path to peace can benefit from interreligious dialogue based on mutual respect and the affirmation of faith. In this regard, interreligious dialogue has two interconnected purposes worth highlighting. First, it promotes mutual understanding among religions. And second, interreligious dialogue helps us to discover the value we have in common, making cooperation in support of the common good possible. Pope Francis identifies the positive relation between people of different religions and genuine dialogue anchored in the virtue of mercy as a paradigm of social friendship. As he said, communion amid disagreement can only be achieved by those willing to go beyond the surface of the conflict and to see others in their deepest dignity. May today's forum help us advance on that path towards a fraternal society rooted in authentic dialogue. And I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Archbishop Gabriel Kachia. I now turn to Rabbi Ephraim Yitzhak Mirvis, the Chief Rabbi of England.
Our distinguished host, His Excellency, Sheikh Mohammad Al-Issa, whom I congratulate on this most wonderful initiative of which I'm delighted and proud to be a partner in. My esteemed colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Psalm 113 declares, Mimizrach shemesh ad ma'or, me'ulal shem Hashem. From the rising of the sun in the east to its setting in the west, let the name of the Lord be praised. At this most wonderful event, we praise the name of the Lord as we seek to build bridges between east and west, between different cultures, civilizations, and faiths, at a time when there is a worrying increase of extremism, hatred, and racism within our fragile world. I would like us to consider 6 priorities as we move forward together. First of all, we are all on the same side. This is a key lesson of the COVID pandemic. The virus doesn't differentiate between peoples of different gender, color, creed, and faith. The virus doesn't recognize borders. As far as the virus is concerned, we, its enemy, are all on the same side, and that is how we need now to proceed well into the future. Point number 2, we can't just leave it at that. We need to act on that recognition. Ben Azai, a great Jewish sage of 1,900 years ago, declared that the most important principle of our Torah is the fact that every human being is created in the image of God, and therefore our respect for others, our contribution to others, our compassion for others needs to extend to everyone on planet Earth. Point number 3, we need to strive for unity, not uniformity. Our ambition should be not to ensure that everybody looks the same, feels the same, says the same, but rather that with unity we respect other people to be themselves, and we give them the space in which they can further their own aspirations. And together we strive to create a harmonious society. Point number 4. We should promote and be proud of our own particular identity as a means towards our universal aspirations. Ultimately, we should all be here for the sake of everyone on earth, and that is because Almighty God is the parent of all of humankind. Point number 5. We need to engage in constructive dialogue. Dialogue is not sufficient. It must be constructive. In our Jewish tradition, we have a concept of machloket l'shem shamayim, an argument for the sake of heaven. That is when we tackle the issue at hand, but don't demonize our opponent who holds a different view. We need to perfect the art of differing better. And also, in our communications, and in that which we convey publicly, we should not only point out the weaknesses of others within their fields and faiths, we need to be brave enough to recognize our own weaknesses. And if, God forbid, within our own ranks, there are sources from which there can be a threat through extremism to peace on earth, we have a responsibility to call it out. That is true leadership. And finally, my 6th point, courage. Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, who died in 1810, would teach, Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tzar ma'od. The whole wide world is a very narrow bridge. But most importantly, we must never fear. As we strive to build strong bridges between different cultures and civilizations and religions, between East and West, we should never fear. We need courage, if necessary, to put our heads above the parapet, to show true leadership, and to enable others to follow us. Because ultimately the future of Mother Earth is at stake. But let me add one final point. Our mission at hand is of enormous importance. But time is of the essence. It's urgent. We need to act now. Let us therefore emerge from today's important event, mindful of the teaching of Hillel in the Talmud, who said, Ve'im lo achshav, ei matai. If not now, then when?
I thank you. Let me now turn to someone who has been instrumental and influential in putting this dialogue together, who's been an ambassador to us, and who is here to share his views as well, Rabbi Arthur Schneier, Senior Rabbi, New York City Park East Synagogue. Rabbi.
I pray that all of us who were created by our Creator to seek shalom, peace, be given the opportunity to do something about it. I want to thank my dear friend, Dr. Al-Issa, who was with me. Dear friend, I represented the Alliance of the Nation, and very, very impressed by your plan of action, William. I think in this room, I'm the only Holocaust survivor, and there's nothing like experience. Nothing like experience. And what was my experience? In my birthplace, Vienna, 1938, I was demonized overnight by some of my friends. I used to play soccer with them, we used to play together. And what started as dehumanization continued with propaganda, continued with concentration camps, continued with the burning of synagogues, continued with millions of people in crematoria, including my family. And during World War II, how many, over 50 million people died. Why? Because of hatred. So one important lesson that I say to all of you, each one of you follow the dictate of Abraham. V'hayi bracha, be a blessing. Be a blessing. And, quoting Proverbs, Mishlei, life and death are in the power of the tongue. Life and death are in the power of the tongue. The tongue has no bones, but it can break hearts. So when we leave here today, I want each one of you to make a pledge. I will carefully analyze every word spoken from the pulpit, in writing, because hatred creates hatred. Love creates hate. And then again, I want to salute both my friend Dr. Al-Issa for undertaking this attempt to build bridges, as we have done also in the Alliance of Civilizations, to build bridges. And all I can say to you, united, we will prevail. Divided, we will fail. And finally, I want to say that a lot of has been said here about intolerance. I'd like to adopt a new word. There's no such thing as tolerance. I don't want to be tolerated. I don't want to be a second-class citizen. When you say we have to work to eliminate intolerance, don't you? What you have to do is adopt the biblical statement, love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. So please forget about tolerance. No more tolerance to be used. And just say, in all our meetings, in daily life, mutual acceptance. That's what we're talking about. Mutual acceptance, whether you're Muslim, Buddhist, Jew, whatever. And above all, let's not close our eyes to the rise of anti-Semitism, to xenophobia, to Islamophobia, to Bushadiophobia. It's all hatred, 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 hatred. So in order to avoid a catastrophe, like in the days of Noah, which caused the destruction of an entire civilization, may we be the ones who lead the way, not only for ourselves, but for our children and grandchildren to come. So my prayer for all of you, two requests: no more intolerance, no more tolerance. Okay? And furthermore, a commitment. Watch your word in print, watch your word up on the pulpit, watch what you're saying in writing. That is going to carry you all the way, particularly in a time, not like girls, externally, when you have the media reaching millions and millions of people, influencing their minds. So therefore, I thank all of you for coming here today. Each one of you are in a sacred commission for the Chaim, for life and not for death. That's what we're all about. And also what we need desperately is to make sure that children are taught in the educational system. Because, as I indicated from my own experience, children are taught how to hate. We are born how to love. So we have to love your neighbor as yourself, and God should give us the strength and courage, as we said, to carry forward this wonderful sacred mission for the sake of the future generations, for the say concerning this world that is so precious gift of the Almighty. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. Now we turn to Baha'i Sahib Mohinder Singh Ahluwalia.
Your Excellencies, beloved brothers and sisters of one human family, please accept Sikh greetings. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. We must thank His Excellency Dr. Al-Issa and the Muslim World League in convening this event in partnership with the UN. It is utterly necessary. Hate speech and other forms of polarization are a grave concern in today's world. Left unchecked, they lead to conflict, war, with resulting death and destruction. Peace demands a new global consciousness and collective transformation, which can only come about through change within our own individual selves, with mobilizing divine power of love, which is infinite. The key to this requires addressing our own mind. We must realize that genuine daily prayer, devotion and living a virtuous life with righteous conduct allows the mind to shun vices like hypocrisy, lust, worldly attachment, greed and ego. Only those who are estranged from God can despise, hate, torture and even kill their own fellow beings, all being children of one and only one God. Please allow me to elaborate some key principles. Firstly, respecting, diversity and celebrating it in the quest for peace is paramount. For Sikhs, Gurus have taught us that all of humanity and creation is created by God, and all creation contains a unifying divine spark. Nobody is worthless in this human fraternity. Each one's life is priceless to be protected. Therefore, we must try harder to do more than just tolerate diversity. Instead, consider it a divine obligation to genuinely respect, even sacrifice for the other in quest for peace. Second, we must create better conditions and collective pathways for building peace, much more collaboratively, funded by respective governments. I ask, is it not high time for all governments to establish meaningful ministries specifically for peace building? The very institution we sit in today, the United Nations, formed over 70 years ago to prevent the factors leading to war. However, the power of the veto of the most powerful of nations have rendered the UN unable to keep its spending. Conflict and war have become all too common. Have we become desensitized to horrors of war? Should we not be thinking more radically, more urgently, and more effectively to achieve peace? Human mind can be nurtured to be one's best friend or the worst hidden enemy. If I may, I would like to share two concrete examples of where we have attempted to make some grassroots efforts against hate and conflict and work towards common good to ultimately provide the building blocks of peaceful societies. The first example I would like to share is focused on providing formal education, but with a big difference. I live in Birmingham, where I lead a large Sikh-based organization. It is a super diverse city with over 200 ethnicities. We have been able to partner with the UK government to open schools in 3 cities, which are value-led and uniquely multi-faith in their approach. Education is paramount to nurture good human beings. These children amaze us in how they beautifully articulate their decisions through the language of values and speak of a common humanity. A second major initiative for formulating the Peace Charter for Forgiveness and Reconciliation. Through collaborating across religious traditions, the key premise of the Charter is to raise the profile of forgiveness, which is vital for achieving sustainable peace. It is the